Hi, I'm Bobby, and you're watching Rated T for TTRPG. Alright, so this D&D horror story. Player recites fanfic for 37 minutes at the table. So we have a theoretically weekly game of 5e in the Mythic Odysseys of Theros setting that's been going on for a couple of years now. Okay, so theoretically, so they cancel a lot. One of my fellow players' patron goddess was Clythos, probably butchered that. Clothos? Clothis? Something like that.
If you
Goddess of
wanna,
destiny, fate, etc. This player, who was normally an incredible role player, sometimes took things too far and indulged in more than a little bit of main character syndrome, which normally we let slide as a side effect of his enthusiasm for roleplay because he got pouty and stopped participating if his feelings ever got hurt. But in one session, it finally hit the point we couldn't ignore it. He began describing how the character had had visions of each of our fates, destinies gifted to his character, like Clothis. Cool. For the first 5 or so minutes, we were interested enough to see where this was going, but after 10 minutes, it was clear it wasn't going anywhere.
uh,
So he was like rambling.
they
Okay.
respected him for 10 minutes. That's a good party.
No, no, no. He had his shot so far.
And he's abusing them.
Yeah, as the title suggests, he went on. He then went on for, I kid you not, a 37-minute in character pontification about what he figured our characters' epilogues, and that's in quotes, should be. It was very easy to keep track of that time because I was already checking my watch after we had started a full 2 hours late that week, half the length of the normal session, by the way. This was also done with no consolation or discussion with the rest of us about our characters, given how off the mark, not to mention mundane and boring, his guesses were. When I spoke to our DM about it, after he said that he was also caught off guard and couldn't find a good time to cut him off without the player taking it personally. Okay. Just because it's a break. Yeah, with this so far, he's just doing shit.
Yeah. This is sounding like really rough main character syndrome.
Like he's just kind of hijacking it. Like when, because I've DM'd for a short time. I have no problem making a player the main character. Whoever has the most drive, I will start to steer more of their backstory into it. I use it more as, because like I can have a full party of main characters. That's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone will get their time.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody's supposed to be, is you're all the main character. But if one player's like not letting anybody else get time, then
Mm-hmm.
it's an issue.
Personally, I like making the parties that I run none of them main characters. They're just some guys. And that's how I like to run it because I will make the story move on without you if you take too much
I
time away
mean,
from the
that is
story.
that is how we run our weekly game.
And that's why I love it. So yeah, he was just as much of a hostage as we all were. That's when you get for being polite to that kid, guys. Also, this was also in the middle of another player's arc. Okay, he's already getting the, yeah, no, he's in the wrong, with our fanfic guy picking the moments right before a long built up boss fight to pull this stunt. So that also got pushed back a whole week, more than one actually, as we had a couple of hiatus weeks around then for basically no reason. All the while, we just stood at the base of the mountain waiting to make the hike to the dragon's lair, listening to him talk about functionally nothing for half an hour. Though honestly, I'd be making this post even if it was a normal session. That aside, I don't think I've ever seen anyone, even a DM, go on for 37 uninterrupted minutes. Think about how long that is. Nearly a full episode of your favorite show, or two, depending, wherein you are at the table and unable to play lest a fellow player become mopey and ruin the session. In hindsight, we should have just risked it. Lol, much less for something so meaningless and forgettable as, hey, here are my shower thoughts, not so subtle expectations for what your character should do when they retire. Be so impressed, please. To top it all off,
This guy was abused.
a couple weeks later, he brought it up to sort of and not really apologize after I DM spoke to him privately. though he was mostly just stressing about how much he didn't want us to forget what he had written for our epilogues. Gun to my head, I couldn't have told you what he said an hour after he first said it.
Oh,
Honestly, we might have been low key flattered that he thinks of our characters that much if one, he had included anyone else in the creative process, and two, he hadn't hijacked a session to do it. This player was recently permanently kicked from the table for reasons unrelated to the story or the subreddit, but this has been bothering me for a while, so it's good to finally be able to get this off my chest. Lol. Yeah, that was like a full therapy session right there. I hope this guy feels better after that. There was some work into this.
I hope you feel better after listening to that. That's wow. That yeah, I it's really tough as a dungeon master to deal with players with main character syndrome
That's fair.
because it's hard to discourage it because it's so refreshing, at least for me, to have somebody who's like so into it because they are. That is one of the benefits to
Yeah.
the main character syndrome is
Oh,
they're
absolutely.
so into the game.
It's one of those that I've noticed that parties will be 100% okay with it depending on who it is, because the wrong player doing it is going to completely derail everything, and I've had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like as a DM, I've dealt with that. It was my brother would do that. He would hijack it sometimes just to see what I can come up with and see how I can turn it back in. And it was such a pain. For those of you against railroading, it has its uses. Don't say it's useless.
I think another unpopular opinion is main characters are not always bad. This one is a
Oh
bad
no,
main
this is
character,
horrible. This
but
is
main
like
characters are not always bad. If
this
you want to be
is
a good main character, involve the rest of the party. Remember that they can be main characters too if they want to be. And if they don't care about it, then still communicate with them, involve them in it, and enjoy being the main character.
inner party collaborations with backstories is my absolute favorite thing.
It's one of the most, I feel like, untalked about hidden gems
Oh,
is
absolutely.
putting people's backstories together.
I've seen
I don't ever
story
hear that talked about enough.
in a couple of our games. I will usually find a party best friend, and that's my buddy.
That's yeah, us. This is another one from D&D horror stories from Broken Breadstick. All right. No girl, you cannot boink my character. That's weird. Okay. So for starters, this was my first and only D&D campaign. That's so sad right off the bat.
Oh no,
The
you told me
whole
not to
effing
do it.
thing was a shit show. I joined late and was a replacement for dwindling player counts.
Okay, I've
I've
been that
never
guy.
found the right group, and quite frankly, this makes me avoidant of playing again, as sad as it is,
Mm.
even after all these years. I will let this be said. Warnings for forced romancing, emotional manipulation, and just all out weird degenerate behavior. First Dungeons and Dragons campaign, I played a male ASMR warlock with a tiny lava pebble spitting rain frog familiar. Whatever, not very important. I joined in right before a boss fight. Now, the person who invited me to the group was utterly smitten with him, to say the least. I brushed it off at first. Granted, we were too busy fighting whatever the BBG threw at us. It wasn't until people started leaving more and more that I started to get suspicious. Apparently, if I wasn't able to show for a campaign because of my work schedule, she wouldn't show up to the campaign because I wasn't there. She also had begun to try and befriend me outside of the campaign, which was fine and okay. She'd also force me into situationship of sorts, like loads of flirting, attempted, dirty role play. I was 15 at the time, so I was uncomfortable. She was 17 going on 18, so yikes. Okay, yeah, depending on how you're raised, that's pretty
No, like
that's a big
it's
cuz
it's
she's heading on to 18, that's not going to be okay. but she eventually brought up the idea of shipping our characters together after having gained my trust and friendship, also making me feel bad. So stupidly, and with the pressure of dwindling player numbers due to the issues which I'd later learned to be mostly with how this player was treating them, I accepted. Oh no. The idea was brought up to the DM, and the DM said it was okay as long as we kept it on the down low. I acknowledged this and figured it was sensible, because why would I want to make the last two other members uncomfortable, or any players at all, no matter the number? For reference, when I joined, we had about 6 to 7 members. Ooh, that's a fat party.
That's
Yeah,
a
those
huge
are
party.
almost always destined for failure. Props to anybody who can run a giant party.
Yeah, like if you got the friend group that can do that, awesome. But like personally, 4, 5 is
Yeah,
like my
5 is where I
max.
try to cap it out. What had finally forced one of the members to formally leave and one kinda slowly stop showing up to sessions was this player making a reference to our characters doing some not very kid friendly activities in their in room in a campaign with a 17-year-old DM and mostly minor players, all of us being about 15 to 18. Our dungeon master was very clearly uncomfortable, and as was I and the other players, leaving us the only 2 players for my final session. Oh, that is so sad. That's around when I started Dungeons and Dragons, was 15 to 18.
Yeah,
Uh,
13.
I had gotten into a romantic relationship. The gal really didn't like this, insulting me, calling me a cheater, also insulting my partner very heavily. I had enough of her ass, so I did what I see as the right thing and blocked her. Told the dungeon master the situation and said I'd be unable to continue the campaign, also apologizing for his campaign being forced to end. He was livid. Oh
Did
man,
the DM went off
Dungeon
on him?
Master's a dick. Yeah, he was livid, calling me selfish and an a-hole for betraying him and leaving his campaign like this. Like, dude,
He
the
had every
player made
reason.
90% of the players leave. Oh, that's so sad. That would be such a rough start to your Dungeons and Dragons life. I don't blame this guy for not continuing to play.
That's no, that's really weird. I hear about these stories occasionally, and I just like it's one thing if you guys like talked about it and
Yeah,
everything, like sure, and like don't be weird about it. But like I personally like the inner party, like I don't like relationships as a whole, like where they kind of like form even like hatred towards each other. That's
yeah,
always fun.
yeah.
But like
Don't make it
that's
awkward for everybody
yeah, like
else,
that's
though.
like borderline stalker level in my opinion. Like probably what might have been following him.
That is the whole point of safety rules. I feel like
Oh,
that's a hard
absolutely.
thing to discuss and understand in Dungeons and Dragons, but it saves these from
No,
happening.
absolutely.
It definitely has to be gauged, and I'll be honest, I don't do it enough to remember this lesson that I learn every time, but I always wish that I verified with the players beforehand when I haven't. Because sometimes I've remembered, but often
That's
I'll forget.
that's fair.
But that one was so sad and rough that I wish we had a D&D happy story to finish this off with. I'm going to request, please put some good D&D stories down in the comments below of your best session that you've ever had, because this would be definitely one of my worst sessions I would have ever
Oh, I
had
would
if
have
this had
left like
happened
a
to me.
long time ago.
Yeah, that'd be rough. But thanks for watching.
Hmm? Oh, hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, well, good. There's more to come. Consider subscribing and eat that like button. It's delicious. Oh. Mm.